Hello, West Michigan. This is Grand Tap Media Business TV. My name is Pamela Keim, your host. The spirit of the show is to introduce West Michigan to all the businesses, nonprofits, individuals that can help us thrive in our lives.
If someone wanted to thank the police or the department, how would we do that? I said I took brownies there once with my girls, and you don't get to see anybody. You just hand them and they get taken back. And so I said, how would I thank you and the department? And she's like, and finally she's like, well, I guess kids, in classes do letters to us and those get passed around the department. So she's like, you could do that. And so as she was saying this, I'm thinking, holy cow, wow, this is a need. So then when Pastor Karen said, what can we do to connect with the community? That's where I was like, well.
The opinions expressed in the following program are those of the producer and not necessarily those of WKTV Community Media.
Hello, West Michigan. This is Grand Tap Media Business TV. My name is Pamela Keim, your host. The spirit of the show is to introduce West Michigan to all the businesses, nonprofits, individuals that can help us thrive in our lives. We have a very special guest for you today, and she has a lot to share what she is giving back into the community. It's a nonprofit called ICI, and it started off as a mission, but it turned into a nonprofit that helps us connect police officers and show our appreciation and promote the community. So I want to welcome Jennifer Franson for being here.
Pam.
All right, so I am so glad you're on the show because you were introduced to me to someone, and once I heard about your mission and how you started, and of course once we spoke on the phone, I thought, okay, you got to be on my show. But I want you to share who you are and what exactly ICI Nation is. I want to make sure I say that correctly.
Yes.
Correctly, and why you started it and what you're seeing now today.
Wow. Okay, that's a lot. Okay.
All right.
So I will start. My name is Jennifer Franson, and I started ICI Nation as a nonprofit organization almost 3 years ago now. But the starting of it really happened back in 2015.
Oh, wow.
So if I were to say where it started as a hobby, right?
And it turned in, so a hobby turns into a nonprofit. Is that what you're?
Which really is the dream, right? So, and it's happened. So I guess I can start there?
Yeah, start there.
Okay. So back in 2015, I go to one of the big churches here, Resurrection Life Church. And so I'm a volunteer at the women's ministry. So at a meeting with the women's pastor and the volunteers, we were planning for the next year, and Pastor Karen said, you know what, we're getting a lot of feedback that the women want to do more to connect with the community. And she's like, so do you guys have any ideas of how we could do that? And I raised my hand. I said, let's do a thank you for police. Just knowing they don't get thanks like firemen do. And firemen will admit that.
How do you know that? How did you know that? Did you hear it from other police officers?
I had not really. I had a little bit of some interaction with police for personal things, but honestly, one day there was a police officer sitting out in front of my house in a car, and she had to sit there for hours while they were doing the forensics people were in this house for my neighbor because she said her computer was stolen. And again, she's a lot of drama.
They were investigating
so
pretty
much. They were doing their part, and she had to sit there for hours. And I went out to her and I said, can I just thank you for doing your job? And even when it's things like this, sitting here, we really appreciate you. And she was like, okay. And she just seemed stunned. So I said, if someone wanted to thank the police or the department, how would we do that? I said I took brownies there once with my girls, and you don't get to see anybody. You just hand them and they get taken back. And so I said, how would I thank you and the department? And she's like, and finally she's like, well, I guess kids, in classes do letters to us and those get passed around the department. So she's like, you could do that. And so as she was saying this, I'm thinking, holy cow,
Wow.
this is a need. So then when Pastor Karen said, what can we do to connect with the community? That's where I was like,
Well,
let's say thank you.
Well, as for the average citizens, we appreciate the police, but nothing's worse than having them behind you with a fight. I mean, most of us interact with the police usually on a negative
Conflict,
thing,
yes.
like a traffic violation,
Right.
Or they show up at, I don't know. We do see them at the school, like football games. They kind of keep things flowing, and I do see them at events. I'm more aware of them now. I think since 2020, you're so
Yeah.
happy to have them around, and you realize how important they are in the community.
Yeah.
But when they're sitting there and I'm going down, M6, right? And they're sitting, I'm like, oh, and I know it's their job. So most people feel that way. I'm like, I don't want to see a policeman behind me. I don't want to see.
The funny thing is, and they say this, when they're out driving and a police comes behind them, I mean, they may be police officers off duty, but it makes them nervous when
good.
there's a police behind them.
Good.
It's just how we're geared and how it's supposed to be. So
You realize you have this. You realize that nobody really is taking the effort to show their appreciation, or maybe just give them like one day a week where, I mean, we have community events where the police are there and for community to share on that one. But then you thought,
Well, and really what happened out of that is what birthed into my nonprofit. So Pastor Karen said, they said, Jennifer, this is a great idea. We'll host the event. You go get the police. And I'm like, okay. So I look up the emails for the chiefs, and I emailed 5 chiefs of 5 departments and said, look, we're going to have this event. We would like you to send some officers or come. So the day of, I'm there to greet the officers when they come in. And we had a total of 13 officers from the 5 departments. And I greet them, and I'm like, look, I want to tell you this is what's going to happen. I'm going to take you in to a standing ovation of probably 150, 200 women. There's going to be lights and music, and we're going to be appreciating you. We're going to take you to the front. We're going to tell you why we value you and appreciate you. We're going to have kids do a little song for you. We're going to pray over you, and then we're going to have cookies and coffee. And the officers are looking at me, and the one goes, okay, but what do we have to do? And I'm like, what do you mean? What didn't you understand? And so I go through the whole thing again, thinking he just missed it. And he goes, okay, but what do we have to do? And I said, what? I said, don't you
Just
get
show
invited?
up,
I said,
right?
don't you get invited by the community to just say thank you? And he goes, no. And I will say it has changed in recent years for sure. But then he was like, no. He goes, we get invited from the community, and that, but that's to talk neighborhood issues or policy issues. And he's like, and that's fine. He goes, but we have no framework for this. And I was dumbfounded. And I said, well, then do your best to just go in and soak it all up. And so you've got these church ladies who don't think they're anything big. They're just appreciating
right.
and valuing and getting to connect with these few officers at this time. And what happened, it has now become an annual event. The Res Life Women's Ministry does this every year. We have had up to 97 officers in attendance.
Are you kidding?
Normally they can't send that many, but we had 50 there, and then there were 45 training in the church at the other end, and so we just brought them down because they use the church sometimes. But normally we get about 50 to 60 officers every year, and we've had them from around 20 departments, different departments, pretty much all of Kent County, and some from Ottawa.
So this is not, I'm sure the police are used to being at events where people want to share their grievances, or share some safety tips and how to, maybe even traffic, how to get through. And then they come to this event, and it's like you just have to show up and not just be. Be.
And receive.
And receive people's, gratitude, appreciation. And I really didn't think, for morale, you would think that they would have done this for the police sooner. Maybe people didn't think about it.
You just don't think. And because what happened was the police were very impacted. And as I said, it has grown. And all the police community started to hear about it, know about it, and come and trust this event and start to get a framework for it. So I was hearing the value of it from the police. But then I was hearing the value of it from the women. The women were like, they would hear some stories of appreciation from the police, and the women are like, what? Our thanks makes a difference?
I bet it does.
And well, didn't they know we're thankful? I said, how? Do you know, I said, the people and community they're usually dealing with aren't usually happy to see them, you know? And so these women started to take ownership in this. And because they would see these officers every year, they would be praying for them during the year. They would be asking me, you know, how are our police doing? When they'd see police in the news, they would be sure to tell me, Jennifer, you know, we're praying for them. If you see them, tell them we're praying for them. And they kind of took ownership and responsibility for this group.
Right.
And then not in a bad way, just in prayer, what they had to give, you know, and it made them feel good for doing that.
I think the majority of the community appreciates the police. You know, it's kind of like appreciating the veterans, and you don't send them a thank you. That, you know, they're doing beyond. You know, police are putting themselves at risk, but well, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They're out there, and you know, they go through and they have to work the holidays.
Yeah.
They have to work you know what I'm saying. There's got to be police officers 24/7.
Right.
On the force, and once you understand that, even though we do, but when you're with it, like you have, to realize that not many people really have said, you know what? It's like when I hang around with a lot of veterans, people will say, thank you for your service.
Yeah.
Thank you for your service. And I try to say that to police too, thank you for your service, but I don't know.
Well, and that's okay, you
Right.
know, and honestly, some police can be like, you say thank you, you know, for being a police officer, and they're like, yeah, you know, and they're like, oh, that's nice, but they still have their guard up, you know, or and so sometimes in building relationships and trust, which is what ICI really is looking to do.
What does that stand for?
The C stands for Connecting Cops and Community to Strengthen the City. So the C stands for connecting,
Okay.
and then the I's, it's a small I and then a big I. Those, they don't stand for words, they stand for us. We're bigger after we connect. So the I's
that's
represent us.
interesting. Yes. Now it's
So-
so they find so it's ICI Nation for all you that not heard about your organization, and it became existent since when?
Since 2020.
2020. Okay. Oh, that's.
I know. I was
it
birthed
before-
in COVID.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you saw a lot that's going on. So I wanted to ask you. All right. So what is So what do you do throughout the year? Then you just have the one event, or you go and share a little bit what you're doing, so other people could learn. When they see you, it's like, okay, we realize that you're doing this and doing this.
Yes.
Okay.
The church has taken over, that's their event. I was just a volunteer. I helped connect them with the police. Now they do it every year.
They do it every year
that's
at Res Life. And then they put out invites through Wyoming, Kentwood, Granville, everyone, or everybody in Kent County?
Everyone in Kent County and
Okay.
Allegan County,
Oh, wow.
Sheriff's Department, and Ottawa County Sheriff's
People
Department.
from Allegan County will come to this too? Well, that's nice.
Yep.
Okay. And it's kind of what did you say, about 2 or 3 hour event?
No, it's like 20 minutes to a half an hour.
Oh.
And then we have coffees and take picture. And so then that's maybe another 30 minutes.
So that's every
So,
year. And when that usually falls in, do they have a certain date every year?
Not a
Police
certain
week,
date.
or 'cause I
Nope.
know there's a police week.
Right, but nope, it's, I think it's going to be in October this year, but that is, again, that's a Res Life event. That's not my
Now
event
we're going
anymore.
to ICI Nation.
Now.
Now what do you do there?
Okay, so that's where I started.
Okay.
So now my organization, I host an event every month.
Okay.
And during the fall and winter months, all of my events are at police departments. So I host either a lunch and learn
Okay.
at a police department so that the police can join us. And for the lunch and learns, I'll have a police speaker and a community leader. So maybe I highlighted an organization called Grand Rapids Dream Center that's doing amazing work in one of the troubled service areas that the Grand Rapids Police oversee. So I had them both talk and share about how they together are serving and protecting the city.
Okay.
So Lunch and Learns, I host prayer gatherings for the faith community. ICI is not a religious organization, but we have a big faith community. So all of the police, the 4 big police departments, agree to host these events and send officers. So when we have a prayer gathering, they will let the officers who are of faith
Right.
come and pray, and I invite my community. And then what we do there is we say, okay, police, we want you to share with us what are some needs in the city, what are some needs in the department,
What are some needs
and then
in
we
the
pray.
city that
Youth.
you hear of from them?
The youth.
The youth.
The youth is very
Lost?
lost, yes, but and there's lots of people trying to help.
Right.
But the youth are the ones really pushing back, and everybody's figuring out the system. So,
The system as to what?
like, what are the consequences? In COVID, juvenile detention centers stopped taking kids because they couldn't fit any more in. So a lot of times when police would catch a kid, they couldn't do anything but take him back home. So he could go out and steal another car or something like that.
That must have been very frustrating for morale. Don't
Well,
you think?
I think it's happening, and it doesn't happen every time, for sure. But there's just issues like that come up, and the kids, again, they were really sad to see the kids that were getting involved in some of this, the car thefts and
Right.
violence, were young, and that was a red flag to them as community members, and going, man, this is a hard thing. So that is always one of the prayer
Now,
requests.
have you had? I'm sure you have. So I'm just going to expel it. You know that. Look, everybody wants to be a good parent, and when your kids, all of us know when our kids got older, we kind of saw the red flags that were things that could possibly they were doing, like sneaking out, or there were simple things like you and I. Our kids are in an impact family and 2 parents. But I look back now as that some of my children, I had 4, and you also, there's always one that just pushes the envelope, right? There's maybe people have 2, but maybe letting parents know, I can think that the police officers can say when you first have you meet up with one due to something stupid, like they did, firecrackers in a parking lot, something stupid like that, right? That kids do, or breaking curfew. What, your kid was out at 2:00 at night and they snuck out. How to say, these little red, even though you might think it's you can correct it, these are red flags that are telling you that it could turn into something serious, right? And that's what we need the police for, is to say, you know what, you need to, open up your eyes and see that there's the rebellion's happening because, and maybe the parents don't even know.
Well,
And your
I
kids.
don't think police want that job. They want to do their job, but they don't. They're not looking to tell people how to parent. However, that does happen.
So we're expecting too much from. I don't want them to help me parent, but you know what I'm saying.
I think it's just a balance, and I think if everybody feels supported, then we don't mind it. But when people feel attacked, then everybody starts to get defensive. But
Yeah.
police, one thing I had a chief say at our Lunch and Learn, he said, do you know what the worst thing ever for me in my job? He goes, it's not the things I've seen or had to deal with, or people spitting on me or hitting me or wanting to kill me. He said, it's when I'm in a store and a mother says to her little children, see, there's a police officer. You don't stop disobeying, I'm going to get that police officer to come over here and arrest you. And I'm thinking, well, I might do that if I were a young mom and I'd be like, hey, see that?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And he said, but we don't want kids to be afraid of us. We want kids to know we're here to protect. They can trust us. If they're doing wrong, yeah, then they can be worried, and they should be.
Right.
But we don't want kids growing up thinking we are out to get them. And I thought, oh, I never thought of it like that,
Right. And I
So-
think Or, they see it on TV. The police are there to de-escalate a situation.
Yeah.
They are
And
there
they
to,
do.
in a domestic violence. I mean, if that's all you see on TV, is the police officer is the mediator, and they, and I think that's I'm glad you mentioned that because, and that's the wrong angle to look at a police officer. They have boundaries, and they get involved in all this, and people depend way too much on everything for them to solve, and there's no way they can do that. So how do we correct this misinformation or what people view the cops or for some?
And that's really, if the problem is trust, we don't trust. And we know that that's not just between police and community, that's, a lot of authority and
today?
Anybody under it today. Yes. And so I just went at it the best way I knew how. I thought, I know, just like those church women made a huge impact on those police, I knew amazing people in this city that I thought, they need to know their police. I wanted the police to know about them so they could be encouraged, and I wanted them to know about their police on a personal level. So I just started hosting events, like I said, every month at the police department.
Okay.
And
Do you
I gave them a
pick, how
chance.
does that work? Is it like one in, you do Kentwood, you move around, or
do
you have?
I do the 4 biggest ones in Kent County. So I focus on Kent County. So Kent County Sheriff's Department, Grand Rapids Police Department, Wyoming, and Kentwood Police Department. And so when I started the organization, the chiefs all knew me, but they knew me through the church events. So I had to sit down with them and say, okay, I'm starting a nonprofit. This is my goal, this is what I'm doing, and I'm building a community. So will you agree to host 3 events a year for me, to invite the community to come out with your officers? And they all said yes. And then I said, okay, one of those is going to be a lunch and learn. Will you pay for the lunch? And they said yes. And so they knew me and trusted me, and I felt I could extend that to build a bridge in the community. And now there's amazing relationships being built, and I could tell you just about one that just happened. So there's an organization here, I'm promoting this organization, but they're called Community Kids. And I think they were originally out of Crossroads Church, but they're a nonprofit, and they work with about 200 Grand Rapids City kids.
Okay.
And they do events with them, send them to camp. But then they also have 60 kids who are being mentored one-on-one.
Wow.
And I just found out about this group, and I'm like, how did I never hear about you?
There's
This
many
is amazing.
nonprofits, yeah,
And they're
that are out
doing
there.
great stuff.
Right.
So I asked them, I said, would you be interested in talking with the chief? And would you be interested in potentially exploring the idea of building a relationship between your kids and the police? And they were very interested, and so we just had a meeting down with the chief of police in Grand Rapids, and they sat and talked about, and the chief said, invite me anytime, I can't believe what you're doing, any way we can help, and and it starts there. Because once you meet, and if you guys can connect over even how they each are protecting and serving the city, then the trust begins to be built.
Right.
And that's how it starts, kind of one person at a time.
One person can make a huge impact by just taking action, starting out. I hear it, I interview a lot of nonprofits that, something triggered in them, or they saw the need, or, and then they collaborate with other nonprofits to make them stronger at an event or whatever. And then before you know it, like yourself, with the police, I would want to show more appreciation to the police. I'm so happy when all of us have been in, maybe but not, but been in fender benders.
Yep. And,
you're waiting for somebody to come in because you just have to, let's get this handled, settled, and get sometimes I got the ticket, somebody else did, and I want to move on my way. But I didn't feel really like it was resolved. The police got there and finished it, and you know what I'm saying?
Well,
walked us through the process of what to do.
You bring up a good point. So when like you said originally, when we think about police, we think about, tickets, if we're not breaking the law, that's when we encounter them. But even thinking, when we get in an accident, who do we expect to come help us? Police.
Right.
And even that, the more I got to know the police and the departments and hear stories, you have no idea of all the things they do. Again, a lot of times it's de-escalating.
Right.
And just listening to the crazy and going, I'm sorry, okay, how can, and helping de-escalate things. Or sometimes, oh, what's the story? Oh, I'm gonna get it wrong, but they see a need. So they get called to a domestic and then there's kids there with no food.
Right.
And so they go grab some McDonald's and bring the kids McDonald's.
Out of their own pocket.
Or they,
yeah.
or a lot of them started to have, because they would see needs when they'd get called places, so they started to have, and I'm pretty sure this is in Wyoming, a girl started it there, but they have, I can't remember what they're called, but like a box in the back of their truck that has all these diapers, food, all these different things, so if there's a need, they pull it out and they can address it.
Kind of reminds me of the fire department who would give stuffed animals when they took kids out of a fire.
Yes.
Or they witnessed their house,
Yep.
and they just was like a little, they know that they're scared.
Yeah.
They're in it's always scared. Even an accident, once you get into the situation, you're standing yourself in the middle of the street, right? It just takes you out of your normal routine of safety, and all of a sudden you just get boom, shot into something. You're almost in shock.
Yeah.
So that have somebody, okay, all right, we have a diaper, here's some lunch, eat something to calm your anxiety.
Well,
right?
and to just be there for them.
So you have every
at that moment, and that's not what we think of when we think of police, but that's what they do.
Well, we do, and so as older you get, you start to, but people don't realize there's all these little things that they're aware of, and they probably do so many things similar to other people in the world, but that we never, like veterans and stuff. I'm sure they try to show more compassion to the people, the enemies, and you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
When then we realize.
Well, that's funny because there is, I helped start and I just helped serve on, Grand Rapids has a clergy on patrol.
Okay.
So they have clergy on patrol that they started, and so I get to serve with this group of, I think we have now 7 pastors and 1 rabbi that serve, and so once a month they do a ride along with the Grand Rapids police officer that they get partnered with. And their job really is to just help build that bridge with the community, help de-escalate on, in situations where they can, just be of assistance, or even if it's just to be moral support for the officer. And it's been fun listening to the clergy as they do their ride-alongs and how their eyes open up and they're like, wow, I had no idea police had to put up with all of that. And wow, he handled that so well.
Yeah.
Wow,
and there a lot of them are.
Yeah.
All right. Now that we've able to share, ICI Nation to West Michigan, tell people how they can get involved or how they can maybe even donate. Go to your and what is your next event? So please share with our audience.
Okay. The web page where you can join, and you click on the join button and submit your email, and then you will get a weekly email from me that tells you, has pictures and a short little bit about good news between police and community going on, and then what the next event is. So to do that, you go to my webpage, which is icination.org, and you can click on the join, and there of course is a donate button, so you are free to donate.
Every little bit helps.
That's right, absolutely. Our next event is actually, in the summer we have some fabulous pastors. Pastor Gary Hankins of Resurrection Fellowship Church is going to be hosting a First Responder Appreciation Luncheon. August 24th, Thursday from 11:30 to 1. It's like an open house style. You can come in, have lunch, but there's a lot of police that come, some of the firemen come, some of the EMTs come, the ambulance.
And where's that going to be?
That is at Pastor Gary Hankins Church, Resurrection Fellowship Church. It's 321 Valley in Northwest Grand Rapids.
Great. So. All right. We want to thank Jennifer Franson for being here from ICI Nation.
Yes. Thank you,
All right.
Pam.
This is Pamela Keim. We will catch you next time on Grand Tap Media. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.